Hi, welcome back to African Perspective. My name is Nelda. Today we're going to be talking about the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The reason we're talking about the DRC, which is what I'll be referring to it as, is because the DRC is an extremely wealthy country in terms of resources. And the reason people feel the need to add that qualifier in terms of resources is because when you look at the economics of the DRC, it is quite a poor country. It is among the poorest countries in the world. Like, we're talking about the bottom 10 with countries like Niger, with countries like Yemen, countries like Mozambique, which when you compare in terms of resources to the DRC, it should not be anywhere in that list. So we're going to be covering mining in particular in the DRC because, like I said, it has a lot of resources. Sure, it has other things like it has the second largest rainforest in the world, which is the Congo rainforest. It has the second longest river in Africa. It has over 10,000 species of trees, whole lot of mammals. It has very unique like animals and plants and all that. But today we're specifically going to be covering mining because there is a lot of dark things going on in the DRC mining industry. Sure, it has been covered here and there really, but again, the purpose of this channel is to talk about the things that I think need even more spotlight or things that are not being spotlighted at all. So we're going to be talking about child labor going on in the DRC. Like, did you know that 40,000 children are working to mine the cobalt in your phone? Did you know that? Yeah. So we're going to be talking about all of that stuff today because I think although there's already some motion in this topic, I think there could definitely be more. And so just going to be shining a spotlight on that. If that's something that sounds very interesting to you, stick along, subscribe, comment, share, like the video, and let me know what you think about the video so that I can keep making more. So the DRC's mining industry we're going to take it back just a little bit because this began during the colonial times. So if you don't know, Africa was colonized, the entire continent. It was divided like pieces of bread, and the DRC was taken by Belgium. So Belgians decided that it would be a very good idea to put King Leopold II in charge. I mean, he was the king at that time, so he was in charge. And people say to this day he never really stepped foot in the Congo, but they were exporting rubber, they were exporting copper, they were exporting all these things. And that legacy of exporting things outside of the Congo remained even after the DRC got independence in the 1960s. Especially, like, it was specifically in 1960 when they got independence, which was 1 year before Tanzania. But then after that, somebody called Mobutu Sese Seko came into power, and he decided it would be a very good idea to stay in power for as long as he wanted. He stayed over, I think it was over 3 decades, he was just in power. And through that form of leadership, which to me, I'm just going to plain right call it dictatorship, a lot of corruption started festering in the government, which still lives on to this day. A lot of like people were cutting through the corners. A lot of their minerals were being taken without them getting fair compensation. Like, if you think about it, I was looking at the statistics today, and when you look at copper alone, the DRC exports 2.2 million metric tons of copper in 1 year. That was in 2022. 2.2 million tons. Can you imagine? That is estimated to be roughly close to $15 billion in revenue just from exporting the copper. When you look at cobalt, which has become a very important topic of conversation, we're going to talk about it shortly. Cobalt gives them roughly $6 billion in revenue. But the GDP per capita of the DRC is roughly $600 per person. Now, you could argue, I hear people saying this a lot, especially with like GDP per capita, because it depends on the population of the people. I made a video a couple of days ago about Botswana and their mining industry, and we talked about the GDP in Botswana being roughly 7,000, and there was a time it was 8,000, but there's only roughly like 3 million people in Botswana. When you look at the Congo, there's 115 million people, but with the amount of resources that the Congo has, because Congo is a massive country, it's the second largest country in Africa, okay? It is a massive country. It is sparsely populated, by the way, because of how massive the country is. A lot of it is just a rainforest, trees, and just wildlife savannas. So people are very much in one area. So even if you were to spread out all the 115 million people, it would still be very sparsely populated. You cannot justify 600 USD GDP per capita. There is no justification of it whatsoever because 90% of what they export is in minerals. They export copper, they export cobalt, they have tin, they have tungsten, they have tantalum. All these minerals are key in industries like the industries that make your phones, so all manufacturing industries. in your Apples, in your Samsungs, in your tablets, in your MacBooks, in your HPs, in your Dells, whatever kind of laptop you're using probably has one of these minerals in it. Probably, chances are, it came from the Congo because 70% of all the cobalt in the world comes from the Congo. So you're trying to tell me that Apple and Samsung and I don't know, Huawei and I don't even know other companies, whichever companies you're using your electronic devices from, you're trying to tell me that none of the cobalt came from the Congo. 70% comes from Congo. Like in 2022 alone, they exported roughly 130,000 tons. And the tricky part is the supply chain of cobalt is very, very, very tricky because they will take the cobalt from the Congo and then they'll mix it with some cobalt from some other country. I don't know, Australia, for example, we say Canada, for example. They'll mix them together and then a country could legally argue the cobalt we have, some of this cobalt that we use has been gotten from, I don't know, they took it from Canada. They could legally argue that because some part of it is from Canada. So they could say the cobalt we use contains cobalt from Canada. So there is no way they're going to be mentioning the DRC because the moment you mention the DRC and you mention cobalt and you mention copper and you mention any of these other minerals, anybody with sense will start thinking, okay, what are the labor rights in the Congo? Are there labor rights that protect people from being able to experience abuse when they're at work? There is not such a thing. I'm going to be adding some photos of what these mines actually look like. And these are industry, quote unquote, industry grade mines that are supposed to be better than artisanal mines. But it's a bunch of people, thousands of young people, most of them are children, who are digging with their bare hands to get the cobalts that people are going to be using in their iPhones. And then every 2 months, there's a new iPhone in town. Every 3 months, there's a new laptop in town with, I don't know, an extra camera with like 1 centimeter more of, I don't know, the screen. And to me, it's just like, do we really, this is just capitalist greed, because there is nothing that justifies the fact that Congo is exporting 70% of the world's cobalt and we're moving towards electric vehicles and Congo is still very poor. There is a very huge disconnect. Very, very huge disconnect. And that is just one part of the picture. I mean, I was looking at a documentary by Vice, I think it was. I will link it in the description down below if you want to watch it, which I would highly recommend, by the way. There was a child who was 4 years old who was mining for cobalt. I got teary just thinking about it. I was like 4 years old. When I was 4 years old, I was eating sand. I was playing in the mud when it rained. That's what I was doing when I was a 4-year-old. I was begging my parents to take me to school when I was 4 years old. But in the Congo, there is a child who's 4 years old who's mining cobalt for you. And nobody is helping that child. That child is not going to school and probably never will. That child probably will remain illiterate for the rest of their lives because the parents also involved in mining of the cobalt also are being paid nothing for resources that are naturally found on their land. And I've said this before. I said this in the Botswana video because Congo also exports diamonds. It's the 4th largest exporter of diamonds in the world. And I've met Congolese people. I've never met a Congolese with diamond on their finger. Never in my life have I ever met. I'm sure there's a Congolese with diamonds on their fingers, but out of the 115 million Congolese people who are the 4th largest exporters of diamonds in the world, not even 1 million of them have diamonds in their fingers. So these resources were God-given resources in their land are being exported. They're not getting anything out of the revenue because 2.2 million metric tons of copper does not equate to 15 billion. I'm sure it's still raw, sure it hasn't been processed, but then the math is not mathing. And this brings me to a very critical conversation about China in Africa. Now, I know that compared to what other countries have done to us, China is slightly, not even better. Better is the comparative of good, less worse, if you can even use that. And if you're interested, I can do a video about China and Africa because I have so many comments. I think they have done some good, but they've also done some bad. And part of the bad is their involvement in the mining industry. Sure, they come in, they have the equipment, they have the systems, they have all of that ready. But then the price that they're giving the locals for the cobalt that they're bringing is not justifiable. Because the everyday person in Congo who's even involved in artisanal mining or is involved in the industrial mining, they're not getting anything out of this. They're really, really not. And to me, it's so sad because I'm like, There's a reason God gave us all these minerals. There's a reason He did, but we're not benefiting. We're not benefiting from using them on ourselves. Like Apple's manufacturing industries are not in the Congo; they're all in China. Like all the diamond jewelers in the world, they're not in the Congo. They're somewhere in Europe. So they take our resources, they send them away, and we don't get the resources themselves. Like we're not using them on ourselves, and at the same time, we're not using the revenue because of corruption. Sure, I mean, I've spoken about this before. I think, sure, corruption has a role to play, but at the end of the day, I think the harm that Congolese people are facing, and just Africa as a continent, the harm that Africa is facing as a continent, is less from the internal parties and more from the external parties. And again, this is not me trying to like take a dump on foreign investments. I think it's a good thing to have foreign investors. I think it's a good thing to have other countries involved. Because, sure, a country like China is way more developed than a country like the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's not even a comparison. So it's a good thing to invite them in and be like, hey, if there is something you can help us with this. But I think the solution here is not to just let any and every country come in, any and every country just to come in and take your resources. I think we should be pushing for local processing. I think we should be pushing for local people to lead this project. And I think, so was it 2022? In 2022, I think, or was it 2021? 2022, I think. I'm leaning towards 2022. So in 2022, the Democratic Republic of the Congo was added into the East African Community, which is where Tanzania, which is where Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan are. So it joined in. And we're like, hey, come along. We will take you in. And initially, I'm just being frank. Initially, I was very much like, I don't think I'm happy with this decision just because they had a lot of internal conflicts going on, a lot of civil war. I mean, up to this point, 7 million people have been displaced internally and roughly 2 million people have been displaced externally. So these are people who had to emigrate from the Congo to countries like Tanzania. We're taking a lot of refugees from the Congo. Happy to take them. But I was very much like, can we pause? Because we do not want, Tanzania is very peaceful and it's one of the things that I'm most proud of as a Tanzanian. And I was very like, I don't know if I want to involve the Congo in the East African community just because we don't really know how that conflict is going to play out. But then I had to think and I told myself, you know what, if I take this on the individual level and if a friend of mine was struggling, I wouldn't be like, I'm just going to let you go, deal with your own problems. I would want to pull them in and be like, hey, come along, I'll help you out. And so I think this is a great opportunity for East African countries, not just East African countries, but even Central African countries, even other countries in Africa, to really get involved and say, we have the richest country in Africa being one of the poorest countries in Africa. This is not a good image for the number one, just reputationally speaking. Africa has a terrible reputation. But number two, the Congo being at a terrible state is a reflection of every other country. It's a reflection of every other country in the continent because they have a whole lot of resources and they're also being exploited. Can you imagine what is happening in all these other countries? The conversation is okay on cobalt mining in the Congo, yes, but think about think about gold mining in Ghana, for example. Think about all other forms of mining, like Burkina Faso started its own gold refinery, and I'm like, why can't Congo do that? Why do we need the Chinese to prepare refineries for us? Why do we need Chinese equipment? Why can't we make our own stuff? Because even the metals that these people use on their machines, they got them from Africa. They got the materials from Africa, like they're using copper. They got the copper from Africa. And in my mind, I'm just like, so they're taking these resources from Africa, they're taking them to their countries, they're making stuff, and then they're coming back, they're selling them to us as if it's something new. You got the raw materials from us. So I think this is the DRC joining the East African community is a great opportunity. So Tanzania, I'm going to sound very biased, but Tanzania is doing fairly okay. I'm just going to be just a little bit of spice. Fairly okay in terms of like stabilizing the mining industry. We're doing very great. We have Tanzanite, for example. So we're doing a good job of exporting it. Although the average Tanzanian is not really... I want to be very careful about how I word this because I don't want to get in trouble with the government. But the average Tanzanian sees some benefit, but not as much benefit as they should be seeing. That's what I'm going to say. And I think that is the story for Africa as a continent. It's that we have everything we could possibly ever need. The only thing Africa doesn't have is snow. And South Africans are going to claim that they have snow, but it's fine. But we have everything, and our people are still being exploited. Like, there is no reason that should be justifying a 4-year-old to be in a mine. And that's just one of the consequences of the mining industry being poorly regulated. But think about the environmental effects as well. Like I think I said in the beginning that Congo has the second largest rainforest in the world. But in 2022, 12 million hectares of land were slashed. We're talking about deforestation. They were just cutting down trees so they could keep expanding mines. People's homes were taken away from them, and they were being, I think, the most compensation. I was reading this in an article. The most compensation that they got was $300. 300. What are you gonna do with $300? Like, your house is being broken. Which house can you build with $300? Not even a mud hut. You could even build a mud hut with $300. But that's what the people of the DRC were being given for these Chinese mines to keep expanding so they can mine their cobalt, take it away, and then sell iPhones to Americans and Europeans. So I think this is a call for not just the Congo to take themselves seriously, because they already are. They're suing Apple. So that's a good step. But I don't think they should go after Apple per se, because Apple is, I think, secondary to this conversation. But the primary perpetrators, I think, are China. And I think the fact that the people on the ground who are determining the price at which they're going to take the cobalt are the Chinese companies. And a lot of them have gotten in trouble because they do not regulate to make sure that there are no kids in their mines. They're not regulating working hours. They're not regulating safety standards. There are a lot of news that have come out from the Congo that people have had mines collapse on them. People have died. Mothers have lost their children. Like, kids have lost their fathers. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So even as I'm saying this, I'm even thinking, and I'm just like, even as I'm talking about this, like, what's the benefit? Like, what's gonna happen? Because I feel so frustrated every time I talk about Africa, because it's just like nobody cares. Even African leaders, nobody cares. It's so sad to me, because if the president of the Congo, of the DRC, were to get up and say, I mean, I think they banned cobalt exportation a couple days ago, or months ago actually, and to me it's just like, but still, cobalt from the Congo is still in the supply chain. Kids are still working in the mines. Like, oh, maybe I should just go to school and study policy. Maybe I will know what to do if I were in that position. But speaking of which, 115 million people is a lot of people to handle. So maybe I should give the benefit of the doubt to the leaders of Congo, just because I wouldn't know what to do with 115 million people. I mean, I'm one person, and sometimes I struggle with managing myself. So I still think that something needs to be done. I have no idea what needs to, I mean, I have some ideas, like, copy from your neighbors. And again, I'm going to sound biased, but copy from Tanzania. Tanzania is doing fairly okay. You can take some ideas from us. You could have people investing from Tanzania. You could have people in the mining industry from Tanzania helping you regulate your industries in the DRC. But that's just this is just some of the few ideas that I have. Not really many, honestly. But yeah, I think definitely this is not something that Congo can do by itself, which is why I am typically not Pan-Africanist, which is very weird to say given my channel. And if you're interested in why I'm not a Pan-Africanist, you can just let me know in the comment section and I'll do a video about it. But I support unity to a certain extent, and I think being able to work together as a continent is a very good idea, because, again, there is no justification for the Democratic Republic of the Congo to be one of the poorest countries in the world. It just isn't. Like, mathematically, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Like, even by girl math terms, it just doesn't make sense. So that is me yapping again for another 18 minutes. But I will link down all the links to the research that I've done, because I've thrown towards you a lot of numbers. And yeah, I have no idea what I personally can do. This is me playing my part, just raising awareness to be like, hey, there's a lot going on in the Congo. They're living pits of mines. They are cutting down trees. They're chasing down animals. They are making kids work, and people are getting cancer from inhaling cobalt, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. So that's all I have to say today. I feel sad, but it's fine. It's the state of the world. I mean, I don't want to go into a spiel about capitalism. It's fine. I hope the video was useful. I hope you share the same anger that I have, because I'm getting very angry even talking about this. But yeah, that is life for you. Well, let me know what you think of the video. And I'm so speechless. That is me done for the video today. I hope it was useful, and let me know what you think. If there is any other topics you want me to cover, please let me know. I have plenty of time on my hands, and Africa is all I know, and it's all I read about. So let me know what videos you want, and I will probably have something to say about it. I'm probably going to complain again, and I should just rename this channel to Complaining About Africa. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.